As I rode out one bright May morning to view the meadows and flowers gay, whom should I spy but my own true lover, as she sat under yon willow tree. I took off my hat and I did salute her. I did salute her most courageously.
Well, hello and welcome to the Dingle Literary Festival. My name is Alex Clark, and today in an event that we're recording, which I say by way of explaining that we don't have a Q&A for you, but you will see that there's a chat box, and we'd love you to just post your thoughts alongside there. But today I'm just delighted to be joined by Rosaleen McDonagh and Mark O'Halloran. We're going to be talking about Rosaleen's book Unsettled and about all sorts of things: racism, ableism, creativity, plays, books, everything in the next half an hour or so. So I'm going to start by saying you two know each other well, don't you?
We do.
And how did that come about? Tell me.
Well, it's about 10 years ago. I was in trouble. I was commissioned to write a play, and I didn't know how to do it, the format. And also, the play had a very strong disability team. And people in Ireland were always saying, it won't sell, it won't do well. And I just boldly and bravely said, I like Michael O'Halloran. I'd fallen in love with Garage, one of his earlier films, Josie, a man with learning disabilities. And I suppose I just felt, as soon as I contacted him, our friendship, maybe I played it, I don't know, man. But my world was really enriched by knowing Mark.
I think our friendship came out of the work as well, because we didn't really hang out together. I shared a workshop with you at one point. I was doing a workshop in Film Base or somewhere like that, and you were at it. And I remember you talked to me about Garage because you said that a lot of your friends or people that you knew were reading the character of Josie as being possibly a traveler man. And I thought that was really interesting. And then we started, you started sending me work and I began to engage with the work. And I think I thought your writing was really beautiful. And I was delighted to be able to engage and say what I thought about it and everything. I thought there was a power in the writing that I thought was very unique. And so it wasn't that I was working and saying and giving notes or anything. I was just going, look, this is what I see in it, and we kind of we grew to respect each other, I think, out of that.
Well, I think Mark might be underplaying, because about 2 years ago, I was in real trouble. I had written a play about transgender and disabled bathrooms, and I showed it to straight, settled, able-bodied men, and they completely dismissed it and said nothing happened in the toilet. And I thought, well, lots of stuff happened, but lots of people. But I remember I was sitting in a restaurant here in Dublin. It was December. It might have been January. It was a cold day, and I opened my phone, and there was a huge, long message from Mark, and his opening line was, "It's gorgeous." And now he's been a really, really good ally in lots of ways. And not just to me, but I know on the quiet, Mark works with a lot of writers who are not mainstream, who are often seen as not having any potential. Mark will never say that in public, but I know from other people. He gives a lot of time to us wayward people.
Mark, I see you're also encouraging your cat, or
My cat wants to get
not to encourage your cat. We really like it when cats come into.
This is my little girl.
This is a very friendly feline space. We welcome your cat.
She has a habit of jumping up on the desk and actually accidentally turning off the Zoom calls. We hope that won't.
Oh yes, I know. We've all had that. I must say, for a long time, I really loved it that my cat came and sat on my desk, and I thought it was really affectionate of her. But then I realised she was sitting under the spotlight, and it was just really warm there. And that's what she really liked. But I'm so intrigued to hear more about this sort of passion that you both have for putting work on stage. Mark, you've worked on stage and in theatre, and in film as a screenwriter and as an actor. And of course, we know you from films like Adam and Paul. And Rosaleen, I mean, your work has been, you've worked in the academic sphere, you've worked in the activist sphere, you work on stage, and now you've written these amazing essays. I mean, bringing to light the variousness of your experiences seems to be a really important thing to you.
I left academia because I was no good. and activism, that was a bit of a disaster. I was never, I mean, I'd turn up at a demo and I'd have a book, and the best I could do was be there, but I never got my hands fully dirty. I was arrested twice, but the guard felt sorry for me and let me go and brought away my comrades. But activism, that would be really stretching.
Well,
I've met her. I've met her on Pride marches, which is which we've got out of college.
That's the day out.
That's a party.
but Mark, I bet you would agree. I mean, activism comes in all sorts of forms. And, it doesn't just come from going on marches and getting arrested.
Yeah, it's not all about
say and creating space and holding space.
I think that it's not all about tying yourself to the railings of Trinity or anything like it. I think that as acts of activism, I think that your book this year is hugely important, like hugely important. I think that the work that you've done in shining light into lives that can be lived in the shadows, I think that's really vital and important. And also the staging of your play this year on the main stage of our National Theatre. Like it was, it was a really important play, I thought, and I like, I mean, for me with the book of essays, what I love about it is you have many identities and many kind of overlapping identities, and you stitch it all together in that book. And I think that's why it's so beautiful and so important.
I don't know, I always think most of us, you and I are of a generation where Ireland wasn't that kind to us, and we were falling apart at the seams. And I still feel when those seams are neatly stitched, all it takes is one thread, and we'll all be back in 1981.
For sure. For sure, for absolute sure.
No, Joanna, what I really not how do I put this? When I write a play or I send Mark a piece, his politics and his sense of solidarity and humanity and his understanding of feminism and racism and whatever other isms we all find ourselves locked into. What I really like about being in contact with Mark or being on each other's radar or orbit is that his history allows him to reflect on my history, and my history allows, me to understand what his journey as a gay man writing. And I also think he would never say this, but I'll say it for you. We assume it's easy for someone now in Dublin to write gay characters, and they're well received, and it's normalized. But I bet you, when you started, you weren't able to do that.
Well, it was an interesting one. I was, when I left drama school, I was always out of the closet. But I remember being in rehearsals, and I remember thinking that older actors were going like, why does he keep mentioning gay? Like, why does he keep talking about it? And I remember thinking, gosh, but there was, I think that, Rosaleen, you're from a generation as well where we stopped taking it for granted that we would allow ourselves to be treated like this, that we actively stepped into life in a different way, I think, than generations before. And it was, it was because of an accumulation of social changes and time changes and being members of the EU and the messages for feminism and gay liberation that was happening abroad and everything that allowed us to kind of go, okay, hold on. And I now think it's delightful that there's gays in every play. Stop writing about gays, they're everywhere.
When you're describing a moment when, as you say, things were changing, they probably weren't changing quickly enough, or in a kind of way that you could necessarily, it would always go the way that you wanted it to go. But it's nonetheless really difficult at that moment to kind of step forward as a person and say, actually, I have to kind of play my part in this. I want to play my part in this. those choices are not that easy to make, are they?
Yeah, and I mean, I had a whole other series of my own identities about being a white male, with all that privilege and going on. I think what Rosaleen is doing right now is far braver and more important. I'd love to talk to you about the journey to writing this book.
Yes, I thank you for I mean, one of the things that I felt as I read it was absolutely those multiple identities as a daughter and as a sister and as a friend and as a traveler and as an academic and a learner and all the things that you wanted to be that would in some senses, in some points, barred from you. It was made difficult for you. But there's a point when you say, for me, it's easier to write than it is to speak, and that writing is a gift, you say, that has saved you from yourself. And I was really moved by that. And I wondered if you would just tell us a little bit more about that.
Mark, you made me nervous when you get on I suppose the first thing I would say, Alex, with respect, you're presuming to change whatever change that was has happened for everybody. It hasn't.
Of course not.
And
Yeah.
one of the things that I spoke recently to Mark was after my play in the Abbey. No journalist, nobody ever asked me what was it like being the only traveller woman in the room. Nobody asked me what it was like being the only disabled person that wasn't able to get into the rehearsal room. And I feel, and it's connected to the book, that I wrote it because of racism. I wrote it because of hurt and pain, not because I wanted to write a book, or not, that was never on my radar. But I think people forget that what Mark and I do often comes from really isolating and dark places. I've just seen your play, the sex one.
Conversations after sex, yeah.
And I remember thinking, on the surface, it's all very hip, but there's a lot of pain in there, man.
Yeah.
In the same way that often, because of my speech impediment, I said that lovely. I don't get to hold the microphone or share the microphone, and I really wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a performer, and I used to work on moving my eyebrows. So I could, I had to do. If you can't move your legs, move your eyebrows. But I just felt Ireland. We talk about lots of stuff, but we don't talk about accents or speech impediments, and it took us a while to get over the rural thing. Mark about Claire. But for me, not being allowed to talk in the way I talk, not having to kind of modify or put on a settled accent or emulate a non-disabled person. Where in a book I could do all that. I could be who I am, and the reader didn't have to ask me 20 times, what was that she said? You know, so it was the,
I think
So
there's
there was, you mean there was a kind of freedom in writing and, you know, a way to express yourself in a space that you could control? Am I getting that right?
I don't know, Mark. I mean, I think you and I again, we watched the marriage referendum and we watched the Eighth Amendment, and during that period, I had lots of friends who died,
Mm.
and I felt, number one, that some young traveler would write about me, and, you know, and I needed to kind of put the record straight. My mortality was kind of there, and I also kind of felt traveler women. We sing a song, we tell a yarn, we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about hurt, we don't talk about aspirations, or I wanted to do all that. I wanted my young nieces and nephews to have a book that they found interesting and maybe a little bit cool to have, or that and as a non-married traveler woman, and there are lots of us, but it's presumed we kind of live isolated lives, and many of us do. Many of us are kind of battling the battle between our culture and our freedom and individual freedom and all. I wanted to write that down and think about it. Would that be right, Mark? You know that.
But I think that there's a brutal honesty with what you do in the essays. Like, you talk about things that I'm sure your family mightn't have wanted you to talk about, but it's why the brutal honesty is what's kind of intoxicating about the book. You feel like we go on this incredible journey with you, but also I think that it debunks a couple of myths about traveler identity and traveler women's identity, which I think is really, really interesting to see. But you also paint beautiful portraits of both your dad and your mum in it.
Yes, there's a great sense of the family.
They just come across as wonderful people. And the portrait of your dad, there was a piece when you're in the van with your father. And is it that you touch his hand or he touches your hand? And I found it incredibly upsetting and beautiful, though. I'm just wondering, what did your own family feel about it when they read it, and or were they more nervous approaching it than?
I was more nervous because I'd been saying to them for months, I'm doing this. And they were saying, yeah, I overcome. And I suppose, and again, Mark, you'll know this. As a writer from a family or from a small community as you are in Clare, enough people have made fun of us. Enough people have said, oh, I had an awful time. I want to get away and be liberated by a settled savior. I did not want to do that. I wanted to honor our culture, and families are tricky, and I would not assume things are easy for everyone. I think it's really hard for gay travelers. It's really hard for some women who are not married. It's really hard for the deaf and disabled people. And it's really hard for travelers who don't follow the rules. That said, I didn't want to write a book about, oh, I was born on the side of the road. And, I had a settled teacher who saved me. I wanted to leave something. There's very little material. There's reams and reams about us, but not by us. And I wanted my nieces and nephews to kind of have some sort of compass or sat nav about where the journey might take you, and that every rule you break, you make a new one for yourself. And I think our ethnicity is not restrictive by way of sexuality or gender or having babies or being able to climb Paul Patrick. It's not.
I mean, that's partly what kind of writing is, isn't it? Making a roadmap for yourself. Is that your feeling, Mark? And do you sort of respond to what Rosaleen says in that sense?
My own writing comes from, I think that almost every writer, their writing comes from their family, because they're the people that they have observed most in their whole life. And even if it's not about their family, you'll use brothers or sisters as a template for a character that you throw in somewhere. Although if my brothers and sisters are watching this, I've never done that. But I find that in my own life, that a story sometimes comes from a crisis within my own life. There's something I have to figure out. And the way I figure out things is by telling stories about it, or putting characters together and see whether it can resolve itself in that sort of way. And I think that's kind of different, though, to what Rosaleen has done. I have one question for you, Rosaleen. I remember we talked before about Zoli. Did you feel a connection to her and her writing when you were writing your book?
Yeah, Zoli is a poet. Her real name is Papuza. Beautiful like a cat. Papuza. And she was a Romany poet. And she had an eye that was dysfunctional. Is that the reason? She looked physically different. She was marked. And her grandfather learned her how to read. And that brought her into great trouble in life. She ended up with a settlement who took her poetry and published it. And then her community turned against her. I loved her, Mark. I loved her. I loved what she did. And I've had those feelings, not so much about the book, but about my plays. I wonder, are they going to turn on me? They're my hardest critics. Am I going to, do I have a right to expose our community? And then I tell myself, get over it. It's fictional. And secondly, we only own our own stories, but we don't own the community's stories. And yeah, I suppose, but I think for the book, Jimmy Baldwin would have been more present in that. I'm not sure I know how to write about racism, and that might sound odd, but I'm sure if you sat down, and even though we talk about it all the time, homophobia, but I'm sure if you sat down to think, how am I going to write this? You'd have to check yourself.
Mm.
And that's what I did. But I also knew as well that it's 49 years this year since Christy Brown died. And Christy Brown was a very handsome man with cerebral palsy. And I grew up probably wanting to be him, or at least be with him. And I kind of felt our material lives, our everyday lives, how, we don't hear that from disabled voices.
Mm.
I suppose I wanted to put a bit of glam, a bit of femininity, a bit of diva behavior, and I wanted a bit of fluidity. Well, there's lots of fluidity in my life by way of the queer community, lesbians and gay. I wanted that's a life of intersection that you end up bumping off not other, but you end up crashing and cuddling and people who have a similar journey, but I wanted to put a bit of glamour on that story.
Well, Rosaleen, I really like the chapter in your book that's about makeup and glamour, and that was just, and it appears suddenly in the book, and it's a kind of turn in the book, didn't you think, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who knows Rosaleen knows there's a bit of glam going on there. I also, one of the things that I felt in the book, that there was a lot of pain in the book, but I didn't feel that it was a misery porn book, because I felt that the writing of it itself was almost, it was a coming to terms. I mean, do you feel that, Rosaleen?
Misery porn. I love the title. Mark, I don't know whether we ever come to terms with violence, neglect, or abuse. And the truth of the matter is, and I'm saying it to you as a friend, I never know where to put that.
Mm.
No, and that's why when you, a while ago, I went to see a play, I was nervous because I know I don't know what to do with myself around those issues. I don't know whether to stay or go. And what happens if I stay? Am I able to absorb? I don't know, Mark. Like, there's pain in your life and there's hurt in your life. It's all kind of relative. But I think in an Irish context, traveller pain, it hasn't been heard. The misery has been heard, but the journey of saying, look, I don't want to be a victim, but actually what happened really hurts, and I have to carry. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes absolute sense to me. I mean, I find that the statistics around traveller suffering are often bandied about, but the stories of families and individuals are sometimes lost. But I wonder about whether you feel there is a renaissance of sorts going on within traveller culture in Ireland, because I certainly feel it.
Yes, with talk about travellers in such a glorious way. So thank you for that. Absolutely, I think your Lady Gregory was looking down on me in the Abbey, and I feel there are loads of young travellers. Here's the thing, Mark. If you're being denied education and you're not able to achieve it that way, but if you have a camera phone and you can mess around and two young lads making a movie, I just think from that to the high end or more refined, I also think Irish institutions suddenly realize actually not only do we have new audiences, but we have really talented people who have a different picture of Ireland. And also I think now there's a kind of a confidence around lots of travellers. I mean, I would be nervous about collaboration, but that's another day, Mark. We can talk about that. But I do feel very joyful and very proud and very delighted with the irony of life. I started out on Abbey Street with a begging box for a service provider, and I took money from that box, which wasn't mine. I bought a lipstick and ran over to the Abbey for an afternoon matinee. Big Magnus with Brenda, and I just thought, there is a renaissance. It's a bit like feminism. I think we've heard all the white, able-bodied stuff. Let's hear the other stuff. And that's what's happening with art and travellers. And although I would say, Mark, art is never a substitute for the right of education. Never.
But lately I've been going on about the Irish housing crisis that's going on. And unironically, I wrote this tweet, which was like, I said, housing is a health issue, housing is an education issue, housing is a mental health issue, blah, blah. And I think it was Rosemary Mahan wrote back to me like, yeah, eventually you find out. I was like, is this, does she work in
ITM, Irish Alex, I know we're going to wrap up, but I have two questions for Mark.
Please, we have time. That is the beauty of the internet space. I'm not going to cut you off. Please ask the questions.
We can talk about this together. First of all, what are you reading at the moment?
What am I reading at the moment? I just finished the Claire Keegan short story. It was beautiful.
I have it on my desk. Isn't it one of the most brilliant books you've ever read? Yeah,
I literally, coming in the door tonight at about 5:45, I finished the last page on the Lewis, and I was like, oh my God, she's world class. Now, I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful book. I read the one that just won the Booker Prize as well, the Damon Galgut,
Promise.
The Promise, and I think that's a beautiful book. In fact, I read all of the Booker shortlist, which I'd never done that before. I'd never gotten them all finished before they announced the winner, and I was like, yeah, Damon Galgut. Although I really liked the Passage North, is it the Journey North?
Passage North.
A Passage North.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm such a show off.
I'm such a show off.
I know one of those books was really, really long.
Well. That one, A Grand Circle, The Great Circle. Yeah. I was like, wasn't my favorite, I have to say.
And my other question, if you would indulge, and then you can ask me. At my age, I love music, but I struggle with knowing what's appropriate, what I'm supposed to be listening to. And I remember watching you being interviewed and being animated about music. And I wondered, yeah, how does that fit in? Or how the algorithm of your life and your writing and the way you are.
Music is the only thing that I've never tried to do. I've never tried to play a musical instrument.
Never played a note.
Never played a note. I don't sing, except in the shower maybe, but I love it. I collect records, I go to gigs, and music is really important. I get up in the morning, I put a record on. When I'm writing, I frequently listen to it, and I end up with a strange playlist by the end of, because I like to kind of listen to the same things over again when I sit down to my desk, and each project will be different. I often think that music can slide past all the bullshit in your head, even all the bullshit you think about yourself or you think about the world. It just slides in and it kind of fidgets with the essential you at the bottom of your brain. And
it's like a short circuit kind of thing.
Short circuits, all the conscious mind bullshit, all of that. And you know, I think some of the times that when I've ever felt kind of close with my dad or whatever, when he was still alive, God rest him, was watching him singing at parties. And he might be singing, you know, The Impossible Dream, or, you know, that big thing from the Man from La Mancha musical or whatever. And he'd be trying to hit the top notes. And I felt that was most essentially him when I used to watch him do that, singing these songs that weren't particularly Irish or anything. But I loved watching my family, my aunts and uncles having sing songs. And
do you think it's also because that's a moment of disinhibition, isn't it? It's a moment when you let go, when when you're watching people at a party singing.
I mean, I used to love it because my aunts and uncles, I mean, when my family doesn't do this anymore, but the aunts and uncles, you had to have your party piece. And it would be like the auntie would stand up and she'd sing whatever big songs she had, or my dad would have his ones. My older brothers and sisters, they had party pieces that they were able to sing at get.
Did you not have one, Mark?
I was the 8th child. By the time they got to me, it was like, forget it. Raise yourself at this point.
Mark, I wonder if you could, Rosaleen, could you answer the questions that you put to Mark? What are you reading at the minute?
Well, I'm reading 3 things.
Good woman yourself.
Well, I've no life, so all I do is read.
Reading is the life.
Yeah, but
the best life.
From November to February, I don't go outside. I read. I stay at home. And I've just finished the Vincent O'Toole's book.
Oh, yeah.
We Don't Know Ourselves. And I thought it would be that urgent, but actually I loved it. All the stuff about settled people, the nuances that went on in Irish society, he cleared them all up. Now that was very, I felt very intellectual out of that. And now I'm reading, and I find it very sad. And for lots of reasons, the woman that had a relationship, Laura with Robert Fisk.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm learning about Palestine and the Arab region of our world. And it's hard going, but the love story is beautiful. I'm a sucker for love stories. And I was a bit disappointed because I love her, but the woman who wrote Lucy Barton, Elizabeth Strout, she had a new one, Oh William. And I sat down to read it with a cup of tea in my hand, and all lovely and cozy. And it just didn't. I went on to Claire Keegan, and that gave me some. Um, sometimes things that you want to work don't work for you, and other things stay with you for a long time after you read it. The other thing, music. Mark, I go to embarrass myself. There's the family music with bursts of hip hop from the younger generation. There's the traditional family music, which is beautiful. And if you ever want to be seduced, get a traveler, and you're lost. You're lost. But recently I stumbled across. See, I also love. Joe Nolan. No, I know.
No show like a Joe show.
No, but he was the only one that was ever seen. There's all that kind of embarrassing country kitsch going on. I tried to dress it up with American country, but it's not. But I found someone at the moment, Mick Flannery.
Oh yeah.
And another fella, Jack O'Rourke.
And Jack O'Rourke is gorgeous. I mean, his voice is beautiful.
Also, you put me onto them. The lead singer is you're always raving about them. Anyway, they're on. They're two young men from Dublin. One of them is O'Brien.
Oh, the Villagers.
Yes.
Villagers are brilliant.
I love them.
Yeah.
But again, if I don't know what happens to women of my age. I used to love music, but now I'm not there. I'm not. And anyway, you're there on top of it. I'm not.
Well, I mean, I kind of you have to make time for it for sure. But I have
your business of getting up first thing and putting a record on.
I have a turntable and lots of records, and I put the record down, and then I go and make my coffee. And there's always something different. I'll pick something out at random and I'll throw it on. So a bit of trash metal for breakfast.
Yeah, I would do that with a book. I would bring a book, poetry, anything into the loo, into the kitchen with the cereal, and I would do that. But I can't. The music thing. I don't think maybe it's a man-woman thing.
No, I think actually what it is that you need Mark to make some playlists for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, but I have lots of people that it's not. I really, and I mean this in a serious way. I think women age differently than men in terms of what it is. I mean, I don't know. Do you have music on when you write? Because I don't, man.
I definitely do at times. I mean, sometimes if it's annoying me, I'll switch it off and I'll go ahead. But it can be part of the process. I also like my research. I would always, if I'm writing something in a certain area, I will listen to all the songs that have that as their theme. I would have all the books that have that theme, or films, or blah blah blah. Music is really important to me. Yeah.
However, you said this to me before, and I loved you for it. When I write monologues, my body is very CP. So sometimes I would rock. You know, I would be in the body of the monologue. I would feel a rhythm. Or I don't. I would feel it's the closest I can get to playing an instrument or singing a song. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
My body does. Or if I'm doing a dialogue or a piece of prose, my body is kind of static. But if I'm doing a monologue, the body just, it's rocking my head, shaking, lots of spasms. I mean, it's a whole different, it's very unexplainable. Even I don't know what happened, but suddenly there's silent music in my head because my body is putting in a rhythm to that monologue. Is that weird?
No, not at all. I think I've started, when I start the dialogues that I've been writing lately, I found myself writing like internal rhythms within dialogue or rhymes within dialogue that are, I don't think that the directors or the producers will see what it is, but that idea of rhythm through language, I think, is very important.
It has a kind of physical presence for you, the language that you're writing.
Yeah.
One more question, if you don't mind. I know you're hungry. I may not get you alone like this again. Mark, you know, in terms of your life as a writer, and like, does that make you really happy? And it made me really happy that I would have felt worthless when I write something, even if it's shit. I still feel I'm in a better place.
I always think of, do you know the cave art that they find in caves in the middle of nowhere in France or whatever, and there's some of them are just handprints, and I always think of the Neanderthal guy or whatever it is dipping his hand in and just smacking or her hand against the thing and then pulling it away, and there's the handprint left for all eternity. I sometimes think about that with writing, like you just scratch out the ideas, what are your own perspectives, blah, blah, and it's there in the world and you've done something. I get a great satisfaction from writing, but I don't particularly like the process of writing, to be honest with you.
Why?
Gives me a pain in my arse. I can never say I get a satisfaction from writing, from finishing things, from honing things. I know that I'm good at getting dialogue working and getting stories working and all of that. If I won the lottery in the morning, I wouldn't write another word. Simple as that.
I don't want to. I mean, I can't really contradict you, but I do wonder if that's true.
I mean, I know I've said before that some of my stories come from crises in my life, and it helps me to understand the world and all of that. If I won the lottery, though, you know, the crisis would be on a beach somewhere, drinking pina colada.
I don't know. I'd give most writers a week or two, or maybe a month, and then the writing might come back.
When I don't write, I get anxious. I'm very uptight. I feel outside of my body.
Yeah.
I feel almost dysfunctional. No, I don't mean that in a real, or she's up her own hole. That's not what I mean. I mean, when I write, I really love what I'm doing. I love what I'm going to do. I love the physical, intellectual effort of saying, how can I get her from there
Yeah.
over there and back? I love the you know that feeling you that when you finish the play and you're kind of delirious. I
Mm.
love lying in bed and saying, now, why did I put her there? Why is she not over here? And that scene does not work. I love the technical.
I think a lot of them is figuring out a puzzle for sure. I I don't know whether you would believe me or not, but I don't feel certain about my work. You know, I'm putting on that play this year. I wasn't certain that it was going to work. I wasn't sure what people thought of it. And actually it took me a while being away from it to be able to go, okay, I think that's okay. The satisfaction, I certainly get satisfaction from finishing something. And I like to look back in a few years' time and see whether something has lasted or not, whether something was just of its time, or whether like for Adam and Paul, for instance, that first film that I made, I believe it's a strong film and that it lasts. And I think Garage does as well. That's really satisfying. There's other things that I've written that haven't lasted, and you let them go. And sometimes I find that uncertainty about having put work down, I can find it a little bit oppressive.
And one more, and this is the last one, I promise.
Squeeze in a final question, Rosaleen.
Well, it's connected to the book and you and your polemics, politics, and plays, and all that jazz. And what I really love about you, I love many things, but I love that you're upfront about your politics, not in a woke, waking way, not in a sort of lefty, liberal, humanitarian way, but in a deep, enriching in your writing and humanity. What I want to know is, do you ever feel you're punished for that political edge to your work? Even your conversations after sex was very political. Now I know other people would listen to that. Say, what are you talking about?
Well, I don't like I can't say that I've ever felt punishment or anything like that. Like the plays get put on and the films get made. Some, you know, not everything gets made. Some things don't get made. But I always, when I write something and I put it out into the world and I try and get it made or try to get it put on, if it fails to get made, I accept responsibility for that. It's because I didn't fight hard enough for it, or I didn't push it hard enough, or blah blah. And when I learned to do that in my late 20s and early 30s, perhaps, to take responsibility, because it actually sets you, my cat is going mad. It actually sets you free from getting into all that angst about they're out to get me. And I can't deal with that. So I go, my fault, that didn't work. Now I'll start another one or whatever. Yeah.
It's a sort of it's a strategy apart from anything else. For
it is a strategy, but also it makes you push harder if you need to push harder for something.
Yeah. I feel actually now, Mark, that your cat is pushing quite hard.
She wants
her dinner. She wants.
But you know what? She goes upstairs and I've got this little laser pointer, and she demands to be played with. So she will stand at the top of the stairs now. So that's where she's gone up to, and she will like yowl at me until I come up and put the laser pointer everywhere, and she flies all over the place.
We're going to release you to your
she needs to be
cat and the laser pointer now. But I'm sorry to bring proceedings to an end, but I've enjoyed speaking to you, and more than that, listening to both of you so much. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really do point everyone in the direction of Rosaleen's book, Unsettled. It's fantastic.
My book of the year.
And in both of your work more widely as well. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you, Mark.
Ciao. I'm going to go look after the cat now. See you, lads. Bye.